ready, Dan? Okay, Karen.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, everyone. We will go ahead and get started. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the table outside as well as on our website. There is also an automatic external defibrillator available on the back wall of the legislative chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent, Commissioner Friend, here. Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Morgan, here. Commissioner Rogers, Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Friend. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber or on Zoom wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to resolutions. Resolutions D through H. There is no need for executive session, so the motion could include adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Friend. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes, however, Commissioner Morgan, I believe. Okay. That's okay. So motion passes, Commissioner, for the record, Commissioner Morgan is abstaining. All other commissioners voting yes.
We'll move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Excuse me, Commissioner Boyle. Thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent. Commissioner Friend.
Here.
Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Present. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. Item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve A and B?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Friend. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is our consent agenda, items A through J. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair,
Mm-hmm.
amend that to approve B through J. I need to abstain.
Okay. B through J, and we'll take A up separately. Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Morgan. Please vote.
Give me one moment, please, commissioners. Okay, and just, I know if you have the agenda in front of you, obviously you saw H was stricken, but so B through J1 less H. And I am starting the vote now. Thank you, commissioners. And Commissioner Morgan. Motion passes 6-0.
We'll go back to item A. Is there a motion to approve item A?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Morgan. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes. Commissioner Rogers abstaining, all other commissioners voting yes.
Next, we have 2 proclamations and recognitions. We are going to recognize county employee on his retirement, Stephen Amweg, who worked for the Douglas County Department of Corrections for 24 years, and Mark Swoboda, who worked for the Douglas County Department for Corrections for 21 years. I do not believe they are in attendance today. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Friend. We do want to wish them a happy retirement and thank them for their service to Douglas County. Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next is citizen comments. Anyone in the chamber or on Zoom wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to our public hearings. The first is a request to amend the future land use map to extend the mixed-use designation along West Center Road corridor east to the extraterritorial jurisdiction line. And with us today is Laura Dietrich from our Environmental Services to give us a briefing on this. This is the public hearing.
Come on. Thank you.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Laura Dietrich, Planning and Zoning Coordinator. So I have several items on your public agenda this morning. We're going to start with the amendment of the future land use map. There we go. So these first 3 items all kind of relate to each other and build on each other. So I want to offer some background context to this. Earlier this year, when we updated our landscaping regulations, it moved garden centers out of ag into mixed use. We have a specific parcel along this corridor here that affected. We wanted to be proactive about this and amend the future land use map to allow for this business to continue. So what you're seeing now is, so what you're seeing now is the West Center corridor. This is about 260th to 264th in West Center. The green designation is ag. The lighter color is rural residential, and the pinkish purplish color that you're seeing is mixed use. So that's as it exists today. And this is our future land use map. So you'll see that mixed use designation has moved slightly. And then what we are proposing to do is to extend that mixed use designation from the camper storage center east to the ETJ with the city of Omaha. And that's the part that's kind of in the greenish bluish color there. That's where we would like to extend that mixed use designation to. Planning Commission heard this at their November 15th meeting and recommended approval. I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyle?
Just a question as to what impact will that have on any future development? So what's the purpose and what impact will that have?
It won't have what we're trying to do is be proactive with this designation. So it won't necessarily change or have a huge impact on that whole area, but it will allow for this business to continue.
So this business is being grandfathered in because it didn't fit the qualifications of the new the new provisions of how the property is designated?
It doesn't fit right now. It does not fit with the designation. So we want to extend that mixed use. And then what we'll do with that parcel that it does affect is ask for a rezone. And that's my second item on your hearing. That we will ask for a rezone of that specific property to also go to mixed use to allow them to continue to run their business. Mm-hmm. And then it will require a special use permit as well, right, which is also on the agenda. Did I answer that question for you?
You did.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you may have said this, and
yeah.
How did you find this? Did your staff know that we were, after all of these things that were happening, did you guys find this? Or did the landowner, just for out of curiosity?
A little bit of both. So when we updated these landscaping regulations earlier in the year, we did
Right.
want to get those businesses into compliance. And we did know that at that time, moving garden centers out of ag would affect this parcel.
Okay, good. So how many more of these do we anticipate because of the changes that we made, 5 months ago, right?
As of right now, the way things stand, I don't anticipate more.
Not that it would be an issue that there was, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how busy you guys are.
We're
with
so
this right now.
busy.
Okay.
No. As of right now, I don't foresee a lot more. This is one specific instance.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, this is the public hearing on item A. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against this item?
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
This is Jim Lang.
Yeah. Members of the county board, my name is Jim Lang. I'm an attorney at 8526 F Street. I represent the applicant here, NSL LLC. Does work under the name of DMS Landscaping. You may have seen his trucks around, and they do a lot of landscaping work from the standpoint of commercial landscaping, various offices and things like that. The principal in NSL is Nate Spoon. Nate is with me today. He's been operating at this site since 2006. And so when it was ag zoned, this was a permitted use. Garden centers are permitted use under the supplemental regulations of ag. 5 months ago, the county is changing that, taking the garden centers out of ag, putting the garden centers in mixed use with a special use permit. So we're now here just to conform to the existing or the new zoning with the new special use permit. But we are legal and proper where we're at right now, and we have been since 2006. We support this action by the board. If you have any questions, Nate and I are here, and we're happy to answer those.
Thank you.
Good to see you,
No
Jim.
other questions or comments? This is the public hearing. Anyone else wishing to speak on item A? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item A. What is the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next is item B. This is the public hearing for a rezone from ag to mixed use of property located at 26020 West Center Road. And as you heard from Laura, these are kind of all intertwined, but did you want to add anything else on item B?
I'll just give a brief explanation again. Laura Dietrich, Planning and Zoning Coordinator. We are requesting to rezone this specific parcel from ag to mixed use to allow him to get a special use permit to continue to run his business. Like Jim said earlier, he is legal non-conforming right now. We are just going to make him legal conforming by the time we're done here today. I am happy to answer any questions you might have. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at their November 15th meeting.
All right, this is the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against this item?
Once again, Jim Lang, 8526 F Street, representing the applicant. We are in favor of this action.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the will of the board? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
And item C, public hearing, is a special use permit to operate a garden center on the property located at 26020 West Center Road. And again, if you have anything else to add, Laura, to this public, okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
Once again, Jim Lang, the applicant, we are for this.
Okay, thank you. With that, anyone else wishing to speak for or against item C? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the will of the board?
Move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, thank you, and thanks for being with us
Thank you
today.
very much.
Thank you,
Nate's here with,
Commissioners.
right here, Nate Spoon here, so we appreciate your assistance on this.
I didn't realize it was since 2006 that you've been there, but thank you for your business here in Western Douglas County. Appreciate it.
The opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Item D is the public hearing clarifying the administration of state statute 77-132 and 23-17403 for the purposes of subdivision and taxing districts. This is the public hearing. Laura? Or Ken?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. So for this particular item, it is a little bit more complicated and unique than what we normally would bring you. But it came to our attention a number of months ago. We had a landowner that contacted us and had, from his understanding, 2 different parcels on this particular tract of land. And after some research, what we found out was that there was a taxing district split in this parcel. And so there were 2, essentially from his standpoint, there were 2 different parcels there because he was getting 2 different tax statements because it was into, I think, school district, I believe. So 2 different school districts here. He's got 1 parcel that got split into 2 per the one state statute, which I believe is 77-132. And we had some conversations with Mike Goodwillie in the Assessor's Register of Deeds office, and finally figured out, oh, okay, that's what's happening. From a zoning standpoint, the landowner wanted to be able to sell off the 1 parcel, and he wanted just assurance from us that we'd be able to issue a building permit on that. From our standpoint, from a zoning standpoint, we're looking at this as it's 1 parcel. And so our answer to him was, no, we can't issue a building permit on that because we're not recognizing that from a zoning standpoint. So what we were attempting to do there, and with the help of the county attorney's office, was to fashion a resolution to be able to just to say, here's the reality of what's happening. We've got 2 different pieces of land here that were split basically administratively per the 77-132 statute, and recognizing the fact that, okay, we will now, even though it doesn't fit with the zoning statute of 23-17403, we will recognize this because that landowner is inconvenienced for no fault of his own, but this was a taxing district thing. So all that explanation had we've had some further discussions with Teresa in the county attorney's office. They would like to tweak the resolution a little bit just to make sure that we are addressing it in the appropriate way that minimizes the amount of potential county liability going forward. So what we're asking then is if you could not finish the public hearing today, but continue it for another 2 weeks, and we'll come back on I believe the 19th, and we can finish that up. We'll have a chance to address that particular liability issue and kind of resolve this so that we can then respond back to the landowner and have them in a position where that landowner can sell the property with the assurance that we'll be able to issue a building permit on that other piece.
Okay.
So apologize for the rather lengthy diatribe there, but that's the context of all this, and thankfully we don't have this type of thing happen very often, but that's what transpired here.
So for a messy issue, you explained it very well.
Thank you.
So with that, this is the public hearing. Is there anyone here today that would like to speak during this public hearing? Otherwise, can we have a motion to continue this public hearing until December 19th? Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Boyle. Please vote.
One moment, please. Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Motion passes 7-0.
Next, we'll move
Thank
on
you.
to, thank you, Laura. Next, we'll move on to committees, the finance budget report as presented. And then we do have an ARPA funding request, approval of resolution authorizing the award of $50,000 to Heartland Hope Mission. This is out of Commissioner Kavanaugh's allocation. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, seconded by Commissioner Friend. Any further questions or comments? Please vote, or Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I just want to say thank you for your support on this. It will be put to good use over the holidays to make sure that everybody has adequate food during the holiday season. So thank you.
Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
We will move to Health and Human Services. Item 1, a resolution authorizing the county board to approve, ratify, and adopt the Department of General Assistance guidelines as amended effective January 1, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Friend. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning. Melissa Sewick, Director of General Assistance. I'm just here if there's any questions or anything like that.
Okay. Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't talked, Melissa and I kind of talked to get an idea based on the conversation that happened a couple of weeks ago. And inquiring how to get where I wanted to get to. I had brought up that, a question to her about the possibility of the housing being raised to 900. After that conversation with her, I agree with her analysis on that because of just the lack of affordable housing opportunities there, people that we're serving aren't on list anyway, and we could raise that and it wouldn't make a difference. But also, if we raised it, people would just raise it up, and that wouldn't so much make available more quality housing. So after conversation with her, what I'd like to recommend to the board is she recommended an increase from the standard housing deduction from 150 to 200. What I'd like to do is amend that to 300. And after some analysis and some conversation with her, she thought that could be absorbed in her budget for the remaining of the year. But what it would do is free up $100 of new money for participants to be able to use. So instead of putting that $100 there into the housing piece, you would increase the deduction that would allow it to be more flexibility and allow them more revenue to some degree. We did have a discussion about, the cost of things now, the increase, but the main piece is that she didn't think her budget would be able to absorb it. Our hope is that if the board agrees to do this, that we can look at it with this gradual increase and see what the response is and see if this helps in some regard, and hopefully the next time the guidelines come, see if that adjustment helps and it may be worthy of more increase. So hopefully I get a second for this to consider, but my motion would be to amend the standard housing deduction from a $50 increase to a $150 increase, which would take it from 200 to, from 150 to 300.
I'd second that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on the amendment? Commissioner Kavanaugh?
We had some discussion last time when this came up regarding the HUD level of funding that the increase wouldn't quite meet. Does this put it at the HUD level of funding that we discussed last week?
It does not. This does not affect the maximum rent assistance we can provide. What this would do is increase the standard housing deduction. So it would be increasing the amount of money that we would be exempting that the clients would be earning. It does affect the budget. It potentially would affect the budget because whatever we'd be exempting, then we would be responsible for paying. the general assistance would be. So it does not, the money wouldn't go into the landlords necessarily in raising that to 900. It just gives the clients more flexibility and discretionary income.
How does that work?
So right now, as of like the current guidelines, they get $150 standard housing deduction. So and this is typically going to affect clients that are donating plasma, donating cans, working a temp job a day or two. So when they're reporting that they have income, $150 of that would be exempt, where we're not counting that basically against their assistance. I do have a table that I provided Commissioner Rogers that would it be? Oh. Thank you. So this right here shows the 2022-2023 guidelines, and then I have some projections based on the proposed guidelines. So the first one, we're talking about this, if a client would be reporting that they earn $600, and we went with the standard housing deduction that I'm recommending, which is $200. They have a total non-exempt income of $400. If the rent increase is approved to be $800, so then that'd be the maximum assistance that they could potentially get from us, minus the $400, which is the total non-exempt income. And so the maximum shelter allowance that they would be eligible for would be $400. So if they have a rental obligation of $800, we would be responsible for $800 or $400, and then they would be responsible for $400. So, and then you can kind of see that same example based on if we would be increasing that standard housing deduction, how that would play out. So there is going to be a financial impact if we would raise it to that $300. And that would be potentially going from the $200 to the $300, potentially $1,200 of assistance we'd be providing to a single individual that they wouldn't be getting under the $200 increase, or the raising it to $200.
So the maximum shelter allowance is $250 right now. Is that right? I'm reading off this.
No. Well, under our current guidelines, yes, because that is looking at the maximum shelter that we can pay is $700. So the figures kind of change. So looking at the effects of our guideline that we're proposing, this line right here is what I'm proposing. And then this would be under if we would raise the standard housing deduction to $300, and then it was thrown out at one point to raise it to $500, and just showing kind of like the difference in what the county would be able to provide to that person.
Okay. So the HUD standard is what on this graph?
This graph, the HUD standard doesn't apply to this. The HUD standard is just specific to rent. And so the fair market, according to HUD for 2024
And
is
what amount of dollars is that?
$895 for 2024.
And what amount of dollars are you recommending?
I am continuing to recommend $800.
Say again.
$800.
Okay. So the HUD guidelines are
1 minute.
$895.
And you're recommending 8.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle?
Yep, so that, I was gonna ask similar questions, but do you feel is the total budget impact? So what do we have to reconsider as far as the total budget impact for your department?
I'm already over budget with my rental account, my rent assistance account. We have an increase of clients, so not even taking into account, let's say we keep our rent at $700, my projections we're going to continue to be over. And I have that information as well. So we do, as Commissioner Kavanaugh has stated a few times, that there is money that we have returned at the end of the fiscal year. So we, even just with increasing the standard housing deduction, I could probably get by for the next 6 months. What does the next fiscal year look like? We're anticipating our clients to continue to increase based on the federal funds that are expiring, and also seeing kind of what the economy is doing. So without any increases, keeping our guidelines how they are today, it's going to be tight. So I don't see the returning a lot of funds. And so I'm going to have to pull from other accounts. And most likely, I don't see how I wouldn't need to request more funding for next fiscal year.
And again, do you have an estimate as the dollar amount? So in other words, number of clients you serve versus the increase in this? So just in general, I have not much of an idea.
I'm anticipating just for the next 6 months that it's going to be probably about a $250,000 increase potentially of what we would be paying in rent. And then that obviously for a full year of potentially paying $100 more, that would increase it to just under $500,000. And it's really hard. It's really hard for us to predict the number of clients, but also if we have just under 500 clients that are approved on our program, so that doesn't include the people that are pending as of yesterday. If we paid $700 rent on all of those folks, it would be just under $4 million we'd be talking about a year. So we have a lot of folks that just can't find the housing. We have some people that have a Section 8 voucher, so we're only going to be paying $50. So we count on those things. But kind of worst case scenario, as far as budget wise, if all the clients that are here today get rent assistance and can find a place, which would be amazing, it's almost $4 million that we're talking about. So I think that's why I'm hesitant to sign on to like raising it to $900 or like increasing the standard housing deduction, just because we don't know with our clientele. And that's a lot of times when we're returning money, it's because we don't know. And just looking at how many clients we have isn't a good predictor to see how many of them are going to be housed and what that housing situation looks like.
Okay, so potentially it could be asking for a $250,000 increase in your budget for not this next 6 months, but the following.
Oh, for the following, it would be about $500,000. Yes.
Okay, and just, I'm just asking, I agree with what you're saying. At the same time, the financial impact, if we did not increase as per the amendment, it's not going to be a financial impact. It's more of a personal impact, I'm assuming, on the client.
It would still be a financial impact because it would be funds that the county would still be responsible. So it's not money going directly to the landlord. It would be money that the client can have like $100 extra in their pocket, whereas like now they would have to be expected to put that portion towards their rental assistance.
Okay, so this is helping put more money in the client's pocket.
Yes, but it is going to cost us as well.
Cost us.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
So share this with us electronically, please. What we might want to do is come back in the normal course of the budget cycle in 6 months and see where we are after. I think the winter has a tendency to maybe increase need a little bit, so that we can adjust going forward if we need to in mid-cycle if the demand is there. If I understand you, if everybody qualified for the max, it would precipitate an increase over what is anticipated, but everybody won't qualify for the max. Isn't that historically pretty certain?
Everybody will qualify for the max. It's depending on what standard housing deduction we would decrease, so how much money they would have exempt. But everybody, when they're approved, there's that max shelter assistance. So if they find a place that is less expensive, or if they have a voucher of some kind, that would be where we are not paying as much, or if it's like a roommate situation. But all of those clients are eligible for the max benefit.
Okay. So, what we want to make sure of is that, we serve as many people as possible, and that we address this, ongoing turnback at the end of the year, which I think last week when we discussed this, the figures that we had was about $800,000 on average over the last 10 years. So if there's increased need, we want to meet it rather than turn back the appropriated amount each year. So that's probably what we need to come back on. And I think that would be best done probably in about 6 months to see where we are. It's just troubling that, we are turning back money and yet the need seems to be increasing, and there should be something that we can do maybe to address that. The idea that, we need to increase funding is difficult to get your head around when each and every year there's a turnback, and like I said, averaging about $800,000 a year over the last 10 years. These are turnbacks that are unencumbered, and so it's not like we're delaying them, putting them over for another year. And if we need to reassess this so that we can reallocate already approved budget amounts, that's something that probably should be done, in mid-cycle, so that this time next year we're not looking at a situation where, like last year, we had a turnback of already appropriated funds. I think this is probably something that maybe the Finance Committee could do most appropriately when they hold hearings on the general assistance budget itself, to see where we are, to kind of address a troubling, I guess it's just chronic because it's gone on for so long, situation where we take limited resources and we put them in a budget to serve very needy portion of our population, and yet apparently the resources aren't entirely used. And one place where we might be able to reallocate this is to take another look at the HUD recommended dollar amount, which isn't that much above where we're going on this recommendation. I think it was the difference between 800 and 895, if I understood the testimony here this morning. So that's a possible area where we could use some of these unutilized funds, so that we're not in a position at the end of the year of turning back funds and at the same time not meeting the HUD recommended guidelines of $895. It seems to me that you can have one or the other. You can't have both. And so I'm just saying that we need to utilize available resources for the eligible community to make sure that the maximum number of people get the help that they need to have adequate housing. That's the whole purpose of this program. And if we can do that with resources that we've already allocated through the budget process, so much the better. We don't have to come back and do supplemental appropriations. And so that's something that I think would be best dealt with in mid-year budget discussions, and I intend to bring that up, but I think the Finance Committee is well aware of this and probably could do something along these lines. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to, to continue a little bit of where Commissioner Kavanaugh was. When Melissa and I talked, we had that discussion. I think the thing that was shared to me, I think the board should be aware the budget, the money left over in the budget is not so much because of the lack of need. The money in the budget is left over because there's a lack of affordable housing, if I'm correct from our conversation. Correct.
Partial, but there is not all the money that's coming back from our budget is direct client services. I have to be filled positions. We have, when we closed the primary healthcare clinic, that was salaries, that was medical, pharmacy, all of that. And so that's really skewing the data. Mm-hmm. And I stand by what we do in the budget and what we are doing with our clientele. And I think we are providing an excellent service and budgeting.
So she completed it and rounded it out. But I think the point too is that one, the issue that we have, and it hasn't raised up as much in our meetings as it has in other places, but our clientele with the issue in the housing piece has to do with, one, just the access of affordable housing and it being available. But and taking that conversation seriously the last time we were together again about the HUD number. Raising it again would, at least my purpose for bringing the recommendation today is that if we raised it to 900 to compete with the HUD piece, it just felt like we'd be negotiating against ourselves. I mean, we could raise it to the roof, but they just raise it up, and we not be able to get with that. On record, I think if it's there, the hope was in trying to thread the needle with this is that 500 number that Melissa showed you was the first discussion we had, to be conscious of the budget, but noting that we could be there probably with the housing piece, even as it is, without the change. The hope was at least making that 100 available discretionary-wise, where discretionarily without it showing up and the landlords making adjustments to some degree, that 100 would be available for anything they wanted to some degree. So that would be a housing piece, or that would be extra. For instance, Melissa talked about some things that are in the regs that she wanted to do with, because they not only get a housing increase, they get a housing supplement every 6 months, but they also get hygiene. And the discussion we kind of had, what the rate of increases was, we probably couldn't absorb 5, 3 would get there. So my rationale for that was to have maximum flexibility. If it was hygiene products, if it was other things, if it was clothing, if it was housing. So the one just seems like the place, putting the 100 in there gave maximum flexibility and choice to the client, but it also prevented us from negotiating with ourselves on that housing piece, because as soon as we increased that number, that would be gone for the client, because the housing piece would come up and we could never catch up with that negotiation piece. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan?
Melissa, I just want to thank you for your passion and your good work that you do for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the citizens.
Melissa, so I'm still a little bit confused here on you don't have right now the dollars for this increase in your budget, other than the possibility of absorbing that increase the first 6 months of your budget, correct?
Correct. So this is right here. This one is where we're projected to be at $700. So keeping our rent at $700 and keeping the standard housing deduction at $150. So where our current guidelines are. So I'm projecting to spend 103% of my budget, which is obviously for my rent account. So I think it's looking at where we were budgeted for rent last fiscal year was 1.75. We had reallocated additional money to rent, which I'm going to have to do again. So it's pulling from other areas and direct client services. And so this is kind of looking at the next two figures we're looking at if we do a rent increase of $100 and then the rent increase of $200. But that kind of will align with if we increase the standard housing deduction by $100 as well, because it's giving clients more discretionary income where they're not having to put that towards their rent assistance, and that we would be covering that. Not all of our clients are earning income. And again, it's looking at kind of our street homeless typically, the kind of is the clientele that are reporting, again, like the plasma, the working a couple days temp, just to have some extra money in their pocket to spend. So I stand by the recommendations I made as far as the $800 rental assistance, so to be increasing it by $100 and then increasing the standard housing deduction to $200. I think if I had to pick one, whether raise it to $900 rent or to increase the standard housing deduction, I would prefer to increase the standard housing deduction, because I think that's going to benefit the client a heck of a lot more than increasing that rent. Because as Commissioner Rogers has stated, and I've stated numerous times here, there's not enough affordable housing. There's not landlords willing to rent to our clientele. And it's not just me saying it. I have plenty of data that I can provide to all of you guys.
But in doing that, even just keep doing the amendment that Commissioner Rogers brought for the first 6 months, besides us being over on rent, we would be over after the first 6 months, or?
Yeah, so for the 6 months, the next 6 months, I'm counting on not utilizing all of our medical, the money that we have set aside for medical. That kind of just depends on the pending stuff from
Right.
Medicaid expansion. So every year, not just this year, we are counting on money not being used, but it potentially can. I've decreased my medical expenses obviously each year, but I'm counting on it not being fulfilled so I can pull
From
to my
that
rent.
fund?
So, and I'm going to have to reallocate funds again, like I did last year, which is fine. We do that, but I'm going to run out of. I can only pull from so many areas, and so it's when you're looking at the overall budget versus our different accounts. And I would be more than happy to go over any of our stuff in detail with anybody at any time.
I think my only suggestion might be that to get us from here to the end of the budget cycle, we might cut that in half so that you're able to absorb it other than having to come back for a supplemental. And again, less pressure on you, but I also want to have you state, when we turn back money, that doesn't necessarily equate to we haven't served clients.
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
That's what, so I want that to be clear, because that's what it was kind of sounding like, is that we're turning money back and we're not helping people, but we are. For all of those that came to us for assistance, we fulfilled that obligation to them.
100% we did.
Okay. And then, so secondly, I would just ask the maker of the motion if that could potentially be something to look at, so that again, it stays within the confines of the current budget. And then again, when we start the budget cycle, definitely start conversation about this particular department and its budget, but that doesn't then put you in a spot to have to come back for a supplemental budget. So that would be
Well, my only question is, and my understanding is, even if we didn't make this change, that we were going over, you were going over anyway at 700.
I'm projected to be over in my rent account. I already am, and in the way projections are going and our uptick in clients and rent amount, so it's twofold. Yes.
So that's my only piece, because then the question would just be how much. That's why I proposed, because when we go to 800, we're going to be over more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I proposed the extra 100 to be there. So we're going over. It's just a fact now what we go over at.
Okay, I only have 12 seconds left and there's no other lights, so I'm gonna come back because I'm not done yet, but Commissioner Garcia has his light on.
Just quick reminder or clarification. So what would be kind of big picture, the overall budget, the increase just by your proposed recommendations currently, and then what would be the fiscal note if we went 100 more on the standard deduction, just so I get an idea of that.
So the next 6 months, so to get through this fiscal year, I think that I will have the money to cover either situation based on where we are medically. That's the big thing. And then we have used some encumbered funds. So I think the next 6 months I should be fine and not returning money like we typically have. But we will be pulling from non-direct client services. So our overall budget would be fine, but it would be significantly more with the client services. So I think when you look at if you look at these numbers that are in gray, that kind of shows you, when I ran them, I was talking about doing the increase in rent, but it's kind of the same effect, whether we're increasing rent or we're increasing the standard housing deduction. It would be potentially $100 more we would be paying per client per month. So that's what we would be looking at right here. So this is where I'm projected to be right now, is the 1.988, and this is where we would be over the next 6 months. If the change for just increasing it to $800. And so if you're looking at increasing it to $800 and then increasing the standard housing deduction, we'd be more like the 2.276.
So that last one on the bottom is basically going up by 200,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
whether it's the rent side or the deduction
Right,
side. Yeah.
right.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
And just to piggyback, so that for the next 6 months, that increase, overall budget, you would be able to absorb.
Yes.
But then, when we start the new budget cycle, that's our new base.
Yes.
And to do anything else, or to continue that, we would definitely have to increase your budget. And again, for these next 6 months, we would watch to see the increase in clients in that situation. But if this is approved, there is a possibility that you would still go over budget, again, if that increase in clientele comes at an increase over the next 6 months.
Yes, it's an increase in clientele or just increase in housing amounts. It's both. And so it is extremely difficult to predict what our clientele situation is going to look like and our budget's going to look like. And again, it's very much based on the economy. And
Right.
so we have the economy doing what it's doing, and then we have the lack of affordable housing, and people are able to charge $800-900 for places that were $400
Right.
5 years ago.
Right.
So I think it's the 800. I think that will open up some windows, and that's also looking at the increase from 700 to 800 as we've seen an increase in utilities as well. And so somebody's rent might be $650, and then they've been paying utilities and they're running out of money. There's only $50 we can assist with. And so clients are able to get assistance from the state, get LIHEAP, that energy assistance, but that's what we're seeing. And so trying to kind of fill the gap, because we are seeing, I think everybody who has utilities has seen that they've increased. And so whether or not the person's actual rent has increased, their overall shelter needs have. Everything has increased, but it's trying to do what we can within our budget, and then trying to do what we can that will make a difference in our clients' lives as best we can.
Sure, okay. Well, I appreciate that. And again, just to be clear as mud, if we do this for the next 6 months, we're keeping our fingers crossed that we would be able to absorb it in the current budget that gets us to the end of the fiscal year. And then, come the next fiscal year, just so everybody understood, that we do this now, we start at a different base when you come to do your budget for the next fiscal year.
Yes, I just ask
Okay.
that when I come back to ask for money, you guys are kind.
That's right, that's right. If we do this, again, if we do this, we're forcing you to ask for more, so I just want everybody to completely understand that. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the amendment to the guidelines?
Madam Chair, just may I ask Commissioner Rogers, just for clarification, the amendment would be to change the standard housing deduction to $300 a month.
From what's proposed at 200 to 300.
Okay, no further questions or come?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I understand what you're trying to do, not completely. There's a lot of data being presented. The key, though, it sounds like you want to open up funds for your clients. They're called discretionary spending. I concur with that. The one aspect of city life is going out into the town. Tickets can range to go to a venue at $10, $25, $45. So people in this program can have discretionary funding to go out into town. They probably actually would know best how to use it in their homes. So that's important. outside of funding and money, I think the board can be advocates. You don't just have to be talking about money when you talk about policy. You should be advocates. Mr. Rogers, you brought up the point that there's limited affordable housing. You're a walking, talking advocate for affordable housing. Go speak with the powers that be, which would be the city council. The city council and city government are looking into affordable housing. They've submitted a plan to the state government, and also there's talk about the missing middle. Council member Don Rowe is an advocate for the missing middle, and then also there's going to be discussion about rent control through this process that the city is going to initiate. Rent control. Who here agrees with rent control? Rent control is a government program that places a limit on the amount that a landlord can demand for leasing a home or renewing a lease. Rent control laws are usually enacted by municipalities, and the details vary widely. So like I said, being advocates for the problem that you encounter as you provide a service as mandated would be wise, so that you could do something besides work your budget. And then, I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this agenda item?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132, Omaha. I'm against this only because of the spirit of the Constitution, equality before the law. This does not include anything for us poor homeowners that can't afford our taxes because of programs like this. Where are we in there? We the people that own properties who maybe paid $21,500, and now you say it's worth $400 and some $1,000, and that's not affordable. You offer, I think Lewis mentioned affordable housing, these little 8.5 square feet things that you call affordable housing. I guess that's the city, not you, but through a nonprofit organization. And even those are said to be worth $115,000. There's a lot of people that can't afford that. So, are we moving towards a socialist state? The spirit of the Constitution says this is really out of whack in a number of instances. Equality before the law, number one. So please rethink and maybe scale back some of these programs. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against or speak during this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, this is the amendment to the guidelines. And again, it is raising the standard housing deduction from 150 to 300, or 200 to 300. The proposed was 200, it's on the table to raise it to 300. No other questions or comments on that? Please vote.
Madam Chair, I did not catch the motion in the second. I apologize.
It was Commissioner Rogers made the motion and Commissioner Boyle seconded it.
Thank you very much. Did you want to vote on it? Okay.
This is on the amendment, Mike, if you want to.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Now we need a motion to approve the 2024 guidelines. Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Boyle. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
guidelines as amended passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Next, we'll move to Human Resources. That briefly personnel report from Civil Service as presented. No legislative items at this time. We do have need for executive session for litigation and contract negotiation. Is there anyone wishing to speak on legislative items?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. There's a lot of legislative items that we, the people, wish you would represent us on down at the state legislature. Very quickly, I think last meeting I suggested Douglas County could be first in the nation with some discussion in their chambers about the stolen election. Well, last night or the night before on ABC Channel 7, unfortunately, the people in Georgia got ahead of you, and they had a televised news story about it. Problem is, the media wants to downplay all the problems with the election counting process. Not just the accounting, but the transferring of the information through machines to the people that certify. We could have done that ourselves here, been number one. But for I don't know how many weeks you have cared to ignore that, having a public hearing, a joint hearing on the Open Meetings Act as well as the elections. I know you're busy, but you do not realize the groundswell of opinions against you, and it is coming. I submitted online a copy of this, and thank you for your speaking into the microphone this morning also, Marianne. I missed it because you weren't when I came in. I didn't know you had jumped over. I was only a minute or two late, so I missed citizen comments. But Mr. Robert Borer is the one that ought to be presenting this, not me. And I hope you will reconsider and schedule, this is a formal request again, for the public, we the people who you work for, to have a presentation on this. So we can present to you why you're wrong. Maybe you've been misled, as most people in America have been misled because of the secrecy out of your Secretary of State's office. I'm going to give you this copy. I can't quite read all of it in the 5 minutes, but I want you to submit this. Mr. Borer has been in contact with all the officials across the county that have anything to do with elections. And he's been denied a lot of information, requests under the law, and denied. What is serving the people about that? We need to have this discussion. We need you people that we elected to listen to us as presenters. Mr. Borer should lead that. He's the only one that has skin in the games of all these people that have, oh, we're going to tell you what happened in the election because the machine stole it. You might have been misled also. Our county election commissioner might have been misled because there's too much secrecy about it. And we need to open that. And the only way we can do that is for we the people to call you to the podium as opponents to our presentation. So once again, Mr. Borer, presenter, people like myself, we the people, are the proponents. You people are the opponents. And we can talk to you because we're the sovereigns. We don't need lawyers to tell us that you can't back and forth with us. We don't need that. That's not what our government's about. And you are violating your oaths of office and violating the Constitution by keeping this a secret, by not allowing it to be discussed. That is a violation of your trust and protection of the citizens. That is your primary duty, the protection of the citizens. So please read this and my comments at the end of it and put it into the record, not just that I was here and I spoke. People need to hear this. But we will present this one way or another. Thank you.
With that, under legislation,
Oh, I'm sorry, I had one other thing.
no, you're done,
Just
Larry.
real quickly,
Larry, no.
for you, Mary
Larry,
Ann, whether you like it or
Larry,
not.
Larry, no, thank you,
Answer
sit
about
down.
your Islamophobia
Larry,
comments to
thank
me.
you, bye, bye, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh, thank you. Made my day.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak on legislative matters, even though Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue, even though there's no bills pending. Um, there will be in next month. I'd like to see a bill and it be approved into law that every county board meeting require a parliamentarian hired by the board or a credential volunteer parliamentarian. And I say this, I'm not picking on any of the board members. I'm saying that because I've been in the before you with previous commissioners, and now we have new commissioners here, or the present commissioners. And there's always this back and forth about, well, what should we pass as rules for this year? Or is that even something? Or what kind of standards are we looking at? Commissioner Rogers often says, well, I look at these standards and not these other standards. So if you have a parliamentarian, you depend on their skill and their knowledge and their duty to the session, and then you submit to the parliamentarians' determinations. So, but I do think that you shouldn't have the deputy county attorney being your parliamentarian because she is biased because of the office that she holds. She encounters conflict of interest because she is a law enforcement individual and also has been consulted on matters before you that need consultation when they're before you. So the consultants have already been consulted. And the deputy attorney has no problem with that. And I also say this because public engagement is new to policy making, to decision making. It's probably 40 years old or new. The concept of public engagement has been taken seriously these last 40 years. So you need to build on that. And I think that if the legislator passed a law that says an independent parliamentarian who's either paid by the board for their services or is a credentialed volunteer parliamentarian would suit everybody in the state. Thank you.
All right, with that, we do have need for executive session for litigation and contract negotiations. Before we go into executive session, please note that the last meeting in 2023 will be Tuesday, December 19th, and the first scheduled 2024 meeting will be January 9th. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Motion by Commissioner Friend to reconvene and adjourn, second by Commissioner Rogers. Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Kavanaugh is absent.